of the Lord. Today we have this fascinating story in the first reading highlighting the power of prayer. In general, it is difficult for us to be convinced of the importance of prayer because there is not an easily observable cause and effect relationship between our prayers and what we see happening in the world. This seems to be the point of the first reading. The Lord is reminding the Israelites that, as the psalmist says, their help is in the name of the Lord. So as long as Moses' hands are raised in prayer, interceding for the soldiers, they experience success. But as soon as he becomes weary, the soldiers begin to waver. By the way, this is why the priest holds his hands like this at various moments during Mass. It's not because it's comfortable. It's meant to remind us of the intercession that happens here through the hands of Moses. It's also meant to remind us of Jesus' wounds, which he shows to the disciples after the resurrection to prove that it really is him. Prayer is the foundation of our spiritual life. We cannot claim to be close to the Lord if we never communicate with him. But the biggest holdup for any of us is that we don't see results. However, prayer is always efficacious because it elevates our minds to the eternal perspective of God. So whether we feel anything happening or not, simply by quieting our hearts and minds and considering things from the Lord's point of view, we are allowing ourselves to be influenced by him. The second insight in this story is the support that Moses receives from Aaron and Hur. Our pursuit of faith can never be a solo mission. And while we can confidently say our help is in the name of the Lord, it seems to me that often this help appears in the form of community. This is what the Greek word ecclesia, which we translate as church, actually means. The church is a community of believers, and without this community, we cannot hope to flourish. You might be familiar with Malcolm Gladwell. He's a famous author who wrote a best-selling book called The Outliers, which examines hard-to-see causes of success across a variety of circumstances. He begins the book by looking at the town of Roseto, Pennsylvania, which gained notoriety in the 20th century because of the longevity of the people who lived there. At a time when rates of heart disease were very high across America, there were almost no instances of heart attacks in this small village. So researchers set out to find the secret to good health in Roseto. This was a village of Italian immigrants, so the immediate guess was that the people there had managed to preserve their Mediterranean diet and were thus outliving the rest of America because of it. Well, when researchers arrived, they were surprised to find that actually the eating habits of these Italian Americans were quite unhealthy. They cooked with lard and got most of their calories from carbs and fats, the good stuff. And beyond that, they smoked and they drank quite heavily. So the conclusion, it was not the diet. Another idea was attributing their good health to genetics. Perhaps these hardy Italians just had good genes. But interestingly, Italian-American immigrants who settled in towns close by to Roseto did not enjoy the same longevity as the immigrants in Roseto. So there was something specific to the village itself that contributed to their good health. What was the answer? The researchers came to an interesting conclusion that is known today as the Roseto effect, which says that the longevity of the people there could be attributed not to any medical influences, but to societal factors. to the basic structure of their community. Roseto, Pennsylvania was founded by a man named Nicola Rosato, who came from a small village in southern Italy. He left there in 1887, aided by the financial support of an Italian priest, in search for a better life. Soon after, many Italians from the same region followed him over, and they all settled in the same village, which they named Roseto after their hometown. So people who were neighbors in Italy became neighbors in America. Several decades later, Roseto, Pennsylvania was still a tight-knit community. They spoke Italian, they cooked together, they ate together, they went to Mass at Our Lady of Mount Carmel every Sunday, and in short, they shared life together. So the consensus was that the low rate of heart disease could be attributed to a stress-free familial lifestyle. The people knew each other, and they took care of one another. There was no insurance or welfare system, just people taking care of people. It's not that the residents here didn't experience hardships. For example, Nicola Rosato, the founder, died in his 40s while working in the mines, leaving his wife and 10 children behind. That is certainly a difficult situation. But the children were actually taken in by other families in the village and raised as their own. So again, the community itself acted as a safety net and supported its own whenever it was necessary. Well, like many ethnic communities, the people eventually dispersed and the town's unique culture was lost. So by the 1970s, the rate of heart disease in Roseto had spiked to match that of the rest of America. The stress-free familial bubble of this charming little town had been burst. I think of these Rosetans frequently because so often we are sold on the need for new medications, changes to our diet, and getting good exercise. And those things can be great. But it seems like the missing piece in all of this is really the things that impact us most deeply on a human level, which is our relationships with each other and ultimately our relationship with God. Here's my epilogue to the Roseto story. In 2024, the great-great-grandson of Nicola Rosato returned to Italy and visited the lovely little village of Roseto. His name is Father Nicholas. That's me. I celebrated Mass at a beautiful church that I was delighted to learn is called St. Nicholas. It's very Italian. This town is in the middle of nowhere in Italy. It's like visiting Goodfield, Illinois, except the only pie they had there was pizza, which was also very good. And I've also been to Roseto, Pennsylvania to pray at the graves of my ancestors, all the while marveling at the fact that I'm here today because of the generosity of an unknown Italian priest who was willing to pay the ship fare so that my great-great-grandfather could come to America and find work. I feel that whatever prayers he may have said as he said goodbye to his family and crossed the Atlantic alone have been answered, although probably not in any way that he would have imagined. God responded because God is concerned about us. In the gospel today, Jesus is not comparing himself to the unrighteous judge in the parable. Jesus says, "How much more will the Heavenly Father provide for us, not out of selfish reasons, but because he loves us?" Today, let us renew our commitment to serving the Lord, trusting that his plan for our futures and for